Living in expectation of future events is equivalent to the endless waiting for an event that may not actually happen in life. Education, as you are about to discover, consists of the entire set of successive steps. We have first grade, second grade, third grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, all under the same term gradus, which in Latin signifies a step. Eventually, you will achieve a degree. You are aware of the fact that you have passed through those stages, and you've done that, so that when you do finally succeed, as in your case, as president of your corporation, there is this AV feeling that you've been cheated. This is a situation where you have already reached the peak. You've climbed the stairway. You're at the top. There is nowhere else to go. At the same time, since you were not trained to focus on what is going on at the moment, then you are delayed in time, so to speak. And so an insurance salesman comes around and says, "Listen, I got the very thing for you, a retirement program, precisely because you're 65. We aren't taught to live in the eternal present in schools. It is considered thoughtless, but it is not thoughtless at all unless one thinks it is one's duty to survive. If you don't do that, you become a nuisance. You become aggressive, or a robber, or a thief trying to organize the people. So, what I mean is, you're a power maniac in learning how to function in the present. One simply neglects is the very simple, inexpensive art of living in the present moment. It really doesn't take an awful lot of energy to maintain a human life if you really consider what you need to eat, what you need to wear, and how much housing you have to have. You sit back and enjoy the big picture for a change, like the fact that you have everything you require. But if you see a droplet of rain make its way down a window pane, you might be compelled to exclaim, "Wow, how cool is that?" And everyone might retort, "Are you out of your mind?" You are simply staring at a droplet of water sliding down a window. Don't you have something more essential and constructive to engage in? In other words, surely you can make more chaos than this, right? Today's attitude that thinks it is irrelevant to imagine the peaceful sight of a raindrop moving on a glass is the attitude causing much detention in the world. It all makes sense why people say, "You are worthless, you are non-human, unless you are doing something which brings about change, doing something radical." We would still like to equate warfare with development at all times. Unless an idea is being brought to life, unless a revolutionary scheme is being executed, and you are engrossed in it, people will tend to say, "Well, laze around, you are a failure at most, as you are not really trying hard enough to build the potential." But aren't these words so self-refessed? The future is not something that should be focused on, and anyone doing so needs to take a seat. As a result of this, people tend to not engage in tasks that pertain to the future. For instance, a Chinese would work just enough so that he makes a profit, but then he leaves his job so that he can visit casinos, or smoke opium, or go sightseeing. This directly correlates with the line you just read. For people, such tendencies are abhorrent. They would say, "How utterly incompetent and irresponsible is it to waste time in such activities?" It seems to me the general destruction is caused by the people who believe everything should be moving forward, whereas they also consider the way the world is managed to be maintained adequately. There's, of course, a gap between, on the one hand, people who propagate certain ethics and principles, and the people who are able to achieve things. It's true for us that we are blessed with a monumental initial victory. All wars would be existed in a form of an H-bomb. So these non-political people are saying to us, the trouble with you is you don't know what you want. People have built a future that they are working for, but feel they're all wet and no vomit. You have yet to attain that belief that everything will fall into place. And that is an outright lie, a pledge. Even your currency is a promise. It is clearly stated on a dollar bill, a dollar will be paid in promise by the Treasury of the United States. What are you supposed to get when you hand them this and say, "Come on now, I want whatever it is this dollar is," and they provide you with paperwork as a loan? Gold is gone, and them giving you anything including gold is now but a fantasy. Everything can be surmised. So all these myriads of so-called primitive people like Amerindians, Mexican Indians, Africans don't communicate with us. And we don't communicate with them because they don't want what we think is the desirable good society. Well, some of them do, of course. So in Japan, for example, the Japanese have been thoroughly conned into the idea that the Western way of life is a great thing. And so they are, by and large, frantic industrialists. And so as a result, the cities of Nara, Osaka, and Kobe are covered in smog. Tokyo is just a madhouse. They're getting it. So the whole point is, the future is an illusion. You know, the main ideas in Hindu cosmology, that is basically in the series of yugas or epochs, you're beginning with great state of affairs and then slowly deteriorate from there. Which is one of saying to people, only things fall apart in the course of time. Therefore, get out of time, get out of the rat wheel of samsara. This leads me to an idea I conceptualize as the politics of diversion. Distract Western man from his history, from the belief that he is part of history that is ever progressing to the future, but instead which only knows an increase of destruction towards latter ends. Distract individuals from chronology by resorting to timeless style of life, which is hence appeasing, than life that is confined to time. That doesn't rule out our technological might. For one of the whole point of technology is that through technology we can end poverty for good. But this can't be viewed historically. So long as it's viewed historically, it won't. That is the case. The entire curse of money and the expenditure of money that can be generated by technology in the entire world is solely a psychosocial issue, not a material issue. People become fascinated with money, which signifies gold as a genuine entity. This is an erroneous concept which in its proper sense blurs the distinction between money and gold. Any poor man would put the balance of his life in rejection if an economist said that one form of poverty was gold. I believe the status of gold was perhaps one of those evils that, however uncomfy that it seems, was quite right. There is a legend that at some stage did not want to transfer gold bars from one country to another, and hence the decision was taken to locate the headquarters of all the banks on a central Pacific island. So after all, the gold was stored there, and then, if they needed to change some gold, it was enough to roll it over into the street, and it all worked well for about 10 years. Then all bank presidents from various worlds came to the island and had a huge convention with their wives and children. They looked through the ledgers and transactions, and all was well. On the very last day, however, the kids declared, "Daddy, we want to see the gold." That is how the bank president would put it. He would say this to the mangers, mums and dads. "Take our children down to the vault so that they can view the gold." And so all those managers will say, "Well, it's sort of difficult and a little problematic, and it takes too much time." And the president would say, "Well, don't be stupid. What is the matter? Can't see the gold?" And so they hummed and hawed, and then finally said, "Well, we regret to inform you that an earthquake occurred 7 years ago, and the gold was all lost underground." But of course, we all knew how much we had at that time, and so for that time, we recorded the amount. In other words, it is a source of humor. People do not understand, in other words, that money is bookkeeping, nothing but bookkeeping. Therefore, the whole concept of taxation, for instance, is a complete anachronism. The thing that is stopping the flow of the actual wealth of the world is this fixation on money. What you need to do is actually reverse taxation and instead issue credit. But you have to keep the credit balance to the gross national product in some form of figuring, and then everybody can circulate what they're making. Otherwise, you're in this ridiculous situation where people are starving in India, and we are hoarding food supplies and burning them, and dumping them in the ocean, which is sheer insanity. But it's all based on a psychological block about money. So this kind of psychological block is what in Indian philosophy would be called Maya. It is an illusion. It's the same kind of illusion as that of the future, the idea that the future is when we are really going to live. And if that's the way you operate, when you get there, you're never going to be able to handle it because you still want a future ahead of you. You're a perpetual donkey with a carrot suspended from your collar on a rod, always pursuing it.